Story 1. There were two geniuses in my class. One became a neurosurgeon and the other opened a candle store. Story 2. She is winning awards for her work mapping the human genome. No surprise. Story 3. The smartest student in my class was disciplined and emotionally stable. I lost track of him over the past 20 years, but an online search shows he graduated from Stanford and founded a biotechnology company. Story 4. The same thing happened to the two smartest students in my class, a young man and a young woman. They were both accepted into Ivy League schools and then had to drop out after developing serious mental health issues. I imagine the high-stress environment may have triggered those problems. They were very likable and I was really rooting for them. Story 5. He attended a public school in Texas. He earned a degree in economics from Yale University. He now works in Washington, D.C. for a state representative. He was accepted into a Massachusetts Institute of Technology graduate program that begins asynchronously and later transitions to in-person instruction. He was my best friend. Story 6. She was constantly stressed by her family pressuring her to earn a 4.0 grade point average and a full scholarship to a good school. After that, she did nothing with it because she was pushed to marry a man who was a total washout but who got a job through his father. That family was awful and I stopped checking in after I moved away. I have no idea what became of her. She was very smart, but I do not think I ever saw her happy. Sadly, there were also a lot of cruel jokes about her among the class because she was so busy with church activities and studying that she never had time for friends and did not seem to know how to relate to other people. The poor girl was basically a spectator in high school. I am not proud of that now. Story 7. I will break the mold here from the burned-out, gifted kid stereotype. He earned a Doctor of Philosophy from a very prestigious university, worked for Google on one of its flagship products, married a medical doctor, left Google, and is semi-retired. He is mostly a stay-at-home dad now and does occasional part-time consulting. I am not jealous. He genuinely deserved everything he has. Story 8. Before he passed away, he was a computer programmer who ran a sideline brewery. Story 9. My brother had a friend in elementary school who turned out to be a genius and skipped a few grades. That friend graduated from my high school class at age 13. 4 years later, he had earned a master's degree, co-authored several papers, and was leading a nanotechnology project at a highly reputable university. Story 10. Lord knows what she is doing, but her high school sweetheart, now husband, came into my club for his bachelor party, and I discovered he is comically stupid. He does not have a lick of common sense. Story 11. As an only child who was homeschooled, he is spending too much time on Reddit instead of being a productive member of society. Story 12. I never heard from the smartest one again. The last time I saw him, he had learned fluent Chinese as his third language. The second became a hard-left activist. The third became a dentist. Story 13. He died by suicide while home on a break from university. Story 14. They studied mathematics and psychology, wrote a master's thesis in English, not their mother tongue, and now work at a university renowned for its mathematics department. Story 15. After moving to the United States to play soccer, he attended Penn State and became a software developer who is doing quite well. Story 16. I attended a top university in India. I became addicted to drugs but recovered, got married, and now live a normal life with my family. Story 17. She received a full scholarship to Harvard, was a track and field star, an opera singer, a fashion model, and a genuinely funny improv comedian. She is now an environmental lawyer and also has a husband and children. I do not know how any real person can achieve all this, and I cannot help but feel that my life is inadequate. Story 18. He became bored with school, joined the Navy, and never outgrew his love for trains. I would not have guessed that this comment represents 10% of my useless internet points accumulated over 2 years. Story 19. I married him and stole his accolades. Now I'm the smartest. Story 20. How do you know what people from your school are doing now? I have no idea what anyone is doing. Story 21. He moved to Europe and became a professional dancer. At least that is what he posts on Instagram. He seems to be enjoying himself, so I cannot judge. He always struck me as someone more inclined to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics or to politics rather than to the arts, since he took advanced placement physics and loved it, was very active in student government, and was either a key member or the captain of the debate team. Maybe he always wanted to pursue the arts. So I am happy for him. He appears to be living a fun life. Story 22. He went to a top university and struggled a great deal because everyone was clever, and he realized he was not the special person his mother had told him he was. He was one of the most arrogant people I have met, so I feel karma worked its magic. Story 23. He earned a Doctor of Philosophy from Stanford in quantum mechanics and is now a professor. An interesting point about him is that he started in the 5th of 5 classes and worked his way up each year until he became the top of the class in our final year. Story 24. Hopefully he got his lights punched out at some point. He was always saying, "Oh, you got 82 on your test? I only got 98. I suck." Humble brag horseshit. Story 25. He left the country after George W. Bush was elected and became a professor of advanced mathematics in Brazil. He was one of my best friends growing up. I hope he is having the time of his life. Story 26. The smartest young man became addicted to drugs and overdosed. His parents were apparently very overbearing. The smartest young woman became an OnlyFans model and an escort. Wild ride, I guess. Story 27. I reached a high position on TikTok after previously working for YouTube. I would say I did all right. Story 28. I was the smartest kid in my class. I did okay academically in the end, and I have a bachelor's degree and 2 postgraduate degrees. For many years, I performed poorly professionally until I recently started my own business, and things are improving. I have a wonderful husband and children, so I consider myself in an amazing position, the best I have ever been. My childhood was awful, with abusive parents, extreme poverty, and I was a socially inept, isolated child with no friends. Much of my adulthood was similar, still socially inept and lonely with no family support, and partners sometimes took advantage of and abused me. Because of that, I feel I deserve the happiness I have now. Story 29. He dropped out of a prestigious, very expensive college in his junior year because he did not understand why he should go into debt for a diploma. He joined the Navy and had the government pay for his undergraduate and master's degrees. There were many difficult years on a submarine as well, but now he is a senior officer working at the Pentagon. He is the smartest and most hardworking person I have ever met. Story 30. He went to university to study mathematics. After a while, he decided that the teachers did not understand mathematics as he did. They did not respect or love it. He became furious and quit. He took jobs in investment banking but left them for the same reason. Last I heard, he was a janitor at a research facility and was well liked because he could solve anyone's mathematics problems. I think he may be on the autism spectrum. Story 31. He became an attorney, a well-known member of the local lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, and was my best friend of 28 years. He died in a horrible car accident 2 years ago. His legacy continues through a scholarship at the law school he attended that supports members of that community. Story 32. I graduated with over 600 students in my class. I don't know who the smartest person even was. It was definitely not me. I barely graduated on time. Story 33. He got into medical school, hated it, and dropped out. For a short time, he performed as a drag queen. Then he joined a non-profit organization supporting troubled youth. He later moved to Paris with his husband and pursued a career in modeling. He now works for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in France. By all accounts, he has done very well. Story 34. He became a top executive at Lehman Brothers. When the company collapsed in 2008, he walked away with over $100 million. Story 35. Is this a bot? How many times are they going to ask this question? Story 36. She opened her own cafe in a neighboring town and employs people with disabilities. She graduated as valedictorian of her high school and later ranked in the top 10% at Yale. Story 37. He dropped out of university and went to work for a company writing hardware drivers. He then worked on Linux kernel development for a prominent company in the field and received offers from other well-known firms. He now co-owns and operates a company that installs fiber optic lines in rural parts of our region, providing service to areas that large providers have so far ignored. I have been working for him recently, updating the website, doing data entry and other tasks. Story 38. There were two of us. Jay had wealthy parents, attended an Ivy League school, earned a law degree, and spent some time working for the Attorney General of Guam. I have no idea what he is doing now, but he is very successful. I was poor. My parents took my Ritalin away, my grades dropped, and I became depressed. After Columbine, I was profiled as a potential school shooter and eventually dropped out. I finally returned to college during the pandemic and am now working toward a doctorate in psychology. Story 39. There was an Indian student in my level 1 media class at college. He was quiet but a genius. His three-dimensional models were the best in the class, and he excelled in other units such as sound production and music videos. What happened to him? He skipped level 2 and went straight to level 3, while the rest of us attended level 2. Story 40. I am spending my lunch hour in my office eating Funyuns and talking to you fine people. I graduated with a class of 20 in a town of 600 in rural Oklahoma, and I was the only one who went to university and the only one who did not vote for Donald Trump. The bar was subterranean. Story 41. I was the smartest kid in my class. Now I am depressed. I have no sense of purpose, and my parents are not proud of me. I have lost my social skills and, above all, my spark is gone. Story 42. He is a depressed, middle-aged man posting on Reddit in a thread about what happened to the smartest kid in his class. Story 43. The smartest student in my class died of drug-related issues. I do not think her family had ever allowed her to be normal, so when she got a taste of freedom, she did not know how to control it. Story 44. He was from a poor family and did not have a good start. He eventually attended a trade school for electronics. After several unrelated jobs, he now works as the chief telecommunications engineer for one of the largest counties in the United States. It is a government job that pays poorly. That is me. Story 45. I'm honestly not sure. I don't keep track of my high school classmates' personal lives too much. Story 46. He became a doctor and later died by suicide after losing his medical license for illegally selling prescription medications online. He was a very kind person. Story 47. We were homeschooled, but my brother was the smart one. He earned a perfect score on the American College Testing exam and a full-ride scholarship to his dream school. A few months later, we found out he had been skipping class to hang out with people of questionable influence. 15 years later, he became homeless and addicted to hard drugs. Story 48. He interviewed at Oxford and Cambridge and received offers from both, but he did not accept them because he was finished with school. Our head of year was furious because he had been depending on the student to boost his profile. Story 49. I lost track of him for a while. Call him John. John was the kind of guy who aced the hardest classes without ever studying. He got a full ride to Stanford and planned to double major in computer science and cognitive science. His dream at the time was to revolutionize artificial intelligence. He built a chess program based on artificial intelligence from scratch that none of us could beat. Admittedly, that is not saying much. This was almost 20 years ago, well before the current artificial intelligence trend. He dropped out after one semester, and I heard a rumor that he was living off the land in Sequoia National Park. About 8 years ago, a mutual friend of ours bumped into him at the aquarium in Long Beach. He was actually working there. The friend asked him what he did there, thinking he was a research scientist. He said he had a menial job. His main tasks were feeding baby dolphins and cleaning their tanks, basically an internship. My friend tried to find out what happened, how someone so incredibly smart could drop out when we all thought he would be the next Bill Gates. John said he thought his life served a youthful purpose. Story 50. When I was a kid, I was super jealous of a boy in my class who was popular. Got straight as his parents were well off and, best of all, he was very friendly. He was everything a kid could possibly hope to be. I changed schools and did not see him again until my late 20s, when I ran into him in a post office. He had gone bald in an unflattering way. To be honest, some men simply do not look good bald, and I remember being surprised that it was him. Fast forward to my mid-30s. I had moved away at 30 and returned at 35. I started going to a gas station in town nearly every day and saw him outside sweeping cigarette butts. I became familiar with him. He had changed drastically. The most noticeable difference was his behavior. He seemed to be struggling mentally. I had no idea what had happened to him. Maybe he had suffered a brain injury or another serious condition. A few years later, I read that he had drowned in the Young Men's Christian Association pool in my town. Apparently, he frequented the pool and had been asked to leave multiple times for being considered unsafe. To this day, the transition from the middle school kid I knew to the man he became still shocks me. Story 51. She fell apart due to anxiety and pressure from her parents. I guess being the best student in high school meant nothing later in life. I remember she used to take very expensive vacations and maintain a luxurious lifestyle that was considered normal at the time. She developed many problems later in life, including domestic problems and substance abuse. It is tragic to think someone so promising was derailed mostly by parental pressure to be the superstar she had been. In the meantime, I was considered a bad influence and a lost cause. I am currently working in my dream job and have a beautiful, loving family. Story 52. They are working in a cubicle, complaining that life isn't fair and that everyone is out to keep them down. Story 53. He went on to become an eye surgeon. He married the most beautiful woman in San Francisco, and they had 3 amazing boys. Story 54. I just looked him up. He came out as gay. This is a big deal because we grew up in a small religious town. He now lives in New York and works at a technology company. Good for him. He has many photos from the Summer Pride Parade. I am not sure whether or how accepting his parents are, but I hope he is as happy as he appears. Story 55. She snapped under the pressure. She was Korean and ended up graduating late. I have no idea now. Story 56. I work at a pet store. I had the highest grade point average and was voted most likely to succeed. I almost skipped grades, but I was extremely socially inept and my parents thought that would only make it worse. My intelligence quotient tested at 164. I was tested for eidetic memory. I do not have one, but I have an exceptionally good recall. I went to college for physics and mathematics. In my junior year, I had a series of psychotic episodes and was later diagnosed with schizophrenia. I dropped out of college and found that animals help with my anxiety and depression and keep me more even overall, so I stayed working with them. It would be great to have my own store, but the economy is poor, so I am just getting by. Story 57. He went to Cambridge University and earned a first-class honors degree. He then took a job with one of the Big Four accounting firms. After a few years, the job became too stressful, so he moved to a smaller company. He has been there for more than a decade, with few promotion prospects but a much better work-life balance and greater happiness. He managed his finances wisely, owns a house in one of the nicer areas of the city, and is a good husband and father. He leads a quiet life and seems content. Story 58. She flunked out of college and blamed her teacher's incompetence. Story 59. My class had many smart students. I do not know what happened to the brightest one, or even which student that was. Most went on to study science and math. One chose a creative subject instead of an academic one and is happier than when she studied academic subjects, despite how good she was at them and despite being encouraged to study science or math because of her grades. Students should not be urged into academic subjects just because they are capable. They should pursue what they love. If that is science or another academic field, they should follow it. If they prefer something creative, they should be supported rather than pushed toward a more academic path. Story 60. The smartest student I knew in the preparatory school earned his Doctor of Philosophy in nuclear physics at age 20 and immediately accepted a 6-figure position. Story 61. I was sure he would become a scientist. However, he got into music and toured with The Who as a musician and sound technician for the past 20 years. Story 62. He attended the Wharton School, worked at Goldman Sachs, and became a writer soon after. Story 63. He was convicted of fraud in November 2023 for misusing customer funds at his cryptocurrency exchange. Story 64. There were two smartest kids in my class. One is a high school dropout working at McDonald's who gave up on trying to do anything. The other is struggling mentally to get things done, including finishing a 5-month master's thesis that now looks like it will take 14 months. Writing down those numbers makes me feel worse because that person is me. At least I have hope for the future. Story 65. The smartest student in my class declined a full scholarship to Harvard University to become a priest, and was killed one day after being ordained when he was struck by a car. All of the top 10 students stayed in our hometown and are earning less than $50,000 a year or are struggling with substance abuse. The bottom 10 students in my class are all successful, earning more than $100,000 per year. Story 66. Two of the smartest people in my classes always got high 90s and perfect scores in almost every subject. One has been a full-time bartender for 20 years in a small town. The other became physically disabled after graduation and is unemployed. She did okay working for the government until she turned 25 and has been living on disability for well over 10 years. The dumbest people in the classes ended up with the best long-lasting careers. I have a great career in information technology. I was neither the dumbest nor the smartest. Story 67. He is in his 3rd year of his medical degree. He completed a mental health assessment and scored 0 on all measures. He is also one of the nicest people I know. He really won the life lottery. Story 68. If I was not the best, I was among the best. Now I am stuck on my degree. My attention deficit hyperactivity disorder symptoms have gone from almost non-existent to the point that the last exam I took was 2 years ago, and it does not feel like I will take another one soon. In the very best case, I will finish 2 years late out of 5 because of a messed up combination of my brain refusing to put effort into anything that feels even a bit boring, an education system that emphasized memorization over understanding, a lack of mental health discourse, and parents who made me think mental health was unimportant. As a result, I delayed seeing a psychiatrist or at least a psychologist by a couple of years. I want my brain back, the real one, the old one, the one that can achieve great things. Story 69. He is a convicted sex offender after having affairs with underage girls. He had to leave his job, his wife divorced him, he must register as an offender, and he moved back in with his parents. He once had a lot going for him. It is disgusting. Story 70. I do not know what anyone from my class year is doing. After high school, I cut off all connections with classmates and friends. I do not care about their lives and did not attend the reunion. That part of my life is in the past. I am focusing on my life and my business. Story 71. A mathematical wizard collaborating with the Smithsonian on artificial intelligence and machine learning. He is working on a project to decipher an obscure language found 5,000 years ago. He is a nice bloke who still drives a Mercedes-Benz C180, drinks the Balvenie, wears a watch from the International Watch Company, and watches cricket. Story 72. My best friend is that guy. He is in the United Kingdom pursuing a Doctor of Philosophy in engineering right now. I met him in London while I was there traveling. He is still the same mild-mannered, shy kid he has always been and has not changed at all. He is one of the few people I know who has not fallen off or strayed from his goals. Story 73. That would be me, a high intelligence quotient. I had the highest college preparation test scores in my school and in the state. I earned multiple academic awards, some national. For bullshit reasons, I did not have the highest grade point average in the class. I got screwed out of some advanced classes by a bad counselor. You cannot catch up if you are not placed in the right classes early on. The counselor did not put me in advanced classes my freshman year, so my grade point average was always slightly lower than the students whose parents made sure they were in the correct classes. I was the brightest kid in my class, but my home life was terrible. My parents were abusive and negligent, mostly emotionally and also in terms of basic care, and they thought every behavioral problem should be solved by hitting me with a belt. I had almost no behavioral problems. Their issue was that they could not handle their own emotions and would get furious about my mistakes. I was once beaten with a belt. I refused to call spanking anything less than beating. I was mowing the lawn and tossed a stone out of the way of the mower. It accidentally went through a window. I explained that, but my father was furious and my mother went along with punishing a small child for an accident that was not foreseeable. I was told to stand still while my father beat me with his belt. If I cried, I was given extra lashes. I had to smile afterward and hug them because that was, in their distorted evangelical teaching, the sign of a good child. I was not given help in life. My father screamed at me for anything and everything. He was mentally ill and told me constantly that I was not his real son. I am his son, but he enjoyed hurting me emotionally as well as physically. My mother was codependent and cared more about whether I was praying to Jesus than whether I was given the tools to succeed. She turned a blind eye to my father destroying my self-esteem. It was my job to work around him, not her job to protect me. She went along with much of the cruel treatment my father put me through and instigated some of it. To put my home life in context, I had to lock the bathroom door every time I wanted to shower or urinate. My father would try to crash through because he suddenly needed to pee. I do not know what he thought he would catch me doing, but both of my parents were deeply disturbed and had hang-ups around sexuality. He broke the door lock once by pushing his way into the bathroom. After that, I had to buy a slide chain and he still tried to break it. So how did I turn out? I have a job and I finally earned a degree in education. I was a teacher for several years and quit to do other things. I do not want to discuss my current job here for privacy reasons, not because there is anything majorly wrong with it. If I had grown up with nurturing parents, I could have been so much more. I spent most of my 20s and 30s surviving trauma and complex post-traumatic stress disorder flashbacks. It was really tough getting out into the world and finding employment. I know I came off as odd to people, but I kept working on it. My parents did everything they could to isolate me and make it impossible to socialize. It took me a long time to learn how to be normal. I still feel like I am faking it most days. I will never be a completely typical person, but I am at a point now where my colleagues look up to me, and I am seen as quirky rather than someone to avoid. Story 74. There were two very smart kids in my class. One was a pretty normal guy personality-wise. Polite, nice, played sports, and was popular. He was going to be a doctor. Then, while he was in medical school or shortly before, he ran into money problems. He set the other student up in a drug deal, invited him over, shot him, and killed him. He disposed of the body, which was never recovered. He is now serving a life sentence and lost his most recent appeal. Many people in our small rural community could not believe it, but as more evidence emerged, it became clear that he had done it. Story 75. I am a medical doctor, an emergency medicine specialist working in 2 public hospitals and currently struggling with depression. Story 76. I am male and was the second smartest student by grade point average. I deeply regret not having a sexual relationship with the top student, who was female. Story 77. This was often my experience, so I will tell you. I became depressed, started smoking and drinking heavily, and dropped out of high school. I worked low-paying restaurant jobs, continued to smoke and drink heavily, and used many drugs. I also earned my General Educational Development Certificate. Then I went to rehab. I moved to the country. The only changes are that I no longer use drugs, cannabis now gives me panic attacks, and I do not have a job. I never learned to drive properly. I have very limited social skills. I can cook fairly well, and I plan to start community college in the fall. I will be 24 when that starts. Essentially, life became too much even without responsibilities, and I turned into a deadbeat who did nothing. The person who was not inherently smart but worked hard to get good grades and learn things is extremely successful in comparison and is now a newscaster on a major local station. I envy her. She grew up with a stable family, decent support, and social skills. Story 78. She became a high school teacher in the next town, which is even smaller. She has a family, and as far as I know, a happy life. But it felt like she could have somehow done more. We always thought she would cure cancer or something. Story 79. Many of you know about your fellow students, especially who the smartest graduate was. I could not tell you what more than 5 of them are doing with their lives, and none of them was the smartest in our class. You all either grew up in small towns and are making these stories up, or you are stalking them. I believe a very small percentage of you are friends with them or were that student. Story 80. He went to college on a full ride, met a girl during orientation, got engaged before Christmas, married the day after the spring semester finished, and then dropped out. A few years later, she had an affair with the best man. He took her back, and she was pregnant a few months afterward. They now have 4 or 5 children. Story 81. He launches payloads into space using money from a billionaire. Story 82. She is a physics professor and associate dean at a major Canadian university. She always seemed destined for greatness. Not only was she acing tests, but she was also one of the most athletic students. Story 83. He told me to buy Bitcoin the year it came out. He died of a drug overdose in Costa Rica. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.